Hello, one and all Dragon Agers. I've got a mission here for you that will raise the roof. Well, pretty much literally, because, well, at the very least, lift the ceiling off. Because that's a thing at the moment. So, how is everyone? Is everyone doing okay? Let's try and find a well-lit place here to give you the update, to tell you what is happening here with the latest battles and missions and stuff. So, the guys got together and we played a full group Dragon Age, whoop-de-doo and yay. So, this was Battle's Edge, the tier 3 adventure thing. And, well, we had Pete, we had Jez, we had Craig, and we had Laurie. With Amelia was along for Laurie. Tanadol, who still doesn't feel quite right about Karak and now feels quite unsettled about him. And we don't have Karak anymore, obviously, because he's retired and he's took over Redhold as the chief commander or shaman, slave herder, whatever the hell he is right now. And we've got his son-in-law, Sigurd, who is now travelling with the group. Another mage, of course. He's a forced mage. So, anyway, who knows what Karak's told him. You know, oh, keep an eye on that Tanador or whatever. Who knows, eh? So, they've all been contacted and told to meet at this particular place by a middle-aged dwarf called Engar. Seemingly a spice merchant. Turns out he's not only that, he's spy master to King Kaelin. All the forces are elsewhere with the coming blight, training, doing manoeuvres, prepping for the area for Ostagar. So it's really not left much in the way of troops behind in the land. And an Arl, who's kind of like a half-brother sort of thing, holds a semi-legitimate claim on his earldom. So, a place called Edgehall, and he's recaptured it with the help of an Orlesian army. So, basically, the PCs have to go and recruit their own army, storm Edgehall, take it back. So we get to use the new Tier 3 mass battle rules. I've been waiting to be able to run this, and we've finally jumped on in. So, they got the lowdown on what to do. Let me just say that, this is something that requires player skill as well. To be able to identify, okay, what are these personality traits like? Can we get a good read on them? And, what do we give them? In the case of, for instance, like Kale, it's flattery and sucking up to and things like that. And I found the notes and information on the characters very useful. In fact, very good to portray them. The 6 commanders that the group can approach. Amazing what this group can do. They actually did manage the unthinkable, as it is mentioned in the book, as being fairly unthinkable. But, amazing if they managed to do it. And that is to actually unite all 6 commanders on the field. That's one crazy heck of an achievement right there. And they did it. And really, it is just a case of, even when the commanders don't like each other, they've talked it away and passed relevant sort of tests by saying things like, oh, well, don't worry, Path, I know you don't like Kale, but chances are he's probably going to get killed off. We've told him he can lead the main charge. And in truth, that means that's just going to put him at the front. And I know you don't like him, so yeah, he's basically doing the damn thing, and we're playing up to him. So that's nice, right? And Path sees that he wants to. He's just very angry, and he feels very justified for his anger. But they've reasoned with him and said, we could bring honour on the lands and that sort of thing. They gave each person exactly what they needed to hear, and they did it amazingly. Flattery for KO, as I say, that was actually almost comical. The amount of sucking up the group did there was hilarious. It was just a great session for roleplay, and I decided I would set the precedent of awarding massively high experience for, you know, their ability to roleplay well. And I think that's a great thing to award experience for, to really encourage it. And, you know, in that vein as well, I remember Brady once said, you know, he only offered experience for roleplay moments and not for anything else. And I suppose it hit it all home, because recently we were talking about Pathfinder modules and stuff, and how, like Laurie was pointing out, that yeah, okay, it would be quite clever to bypass the enemies like I was thinking of doing, you know, do whatever to bypass them, but we technically won't get the experience unless we actually grind them and fight them. And of course, combats in RPGs can get a bit dull, and Pathfinder is really very subject to that same problem as well, mechanically speaking. And I'm not saying Dragon Age isn't, but where Dragon Age is a tad simpler, it doesn't bog down quite so much. And I mean, the thing is, every aspect of it is a lot easier in every way. Even with the mass battle, something that should be, you know, more complicated, and it's for some of the players, you know, they see it as maybe it could do with being a bit more complicated, so that they could really find all of the tactics and finesse to their plans that they want to implement. But I don't need to really go into the ins and outs of it. A lot of it was just spent in RP, and for me that was a great success of a session. Just getting them to be able to engage in hours of conversation, really. And then we came to battle, and the characters ended up with, like, well, with all the forces combined, like 2,050, which outnumbered Marcel Corbin's Chevalier, Orlesian Commander, his force being like 1,250, something like that. So that was quite amazing. But he's a veteran commander. Do not underestimate him at any cost. And I'd drawn a map out there, so the players were poring over that map, what to do. And their choices really had to be reflected in the secret modifiers. So, the way that they were, oh, we're going to move up here, we're going to put scouts in this bit of forest here, this bit of forest here, we're going to see what we can see. Now, they rolled a military cunning test against Corbin, and Corbin came out victorious. So his scouts managed to see them coming from a long way off and didn't give it away, that didn't get seen themselves, basically. So they knew the army was coming, and they were getting on for double their size, not double their size. That's very important, because in the mass battle rules, if they are actually 2-to-1, then it actually stacks on as another factor in the advanced tests threshold thing that is mass battles as a mechanic. So, the player characters march their army down that way, decide to split their scouts off into the forests. Pete's there with Yellow Eye, pirate. He accompanies the Dalish elves there into the woods, and they get jumped upon. Corbin's got scouts in there waiting in the north woods and the southern ones, and there is an atrocious fight that breaks out between them. Meanwhile, Amelia has given control of the opening engagements to the new mage, who, Greg's new mage, Sigurd, who is handling things quite well, because he's got the better stat anyway for that particular role, the military. So military law, which is a cunning thing. Amelia's not so good on the cunning. So she's like -2 cunning, but then she's got the focus that evens her out on a nice fat 0. So and you can elect sub commanders anyway. That's a thing you can do. It's in the book about that as well. So yeah, stage 1, they kind of got a bit of a surprise there by Corbyn's forces, and they were already waiting in position within those trees. And it wasn't just based on the fact that the army were coming. It was already going to be that Corbyn's forces were waiting in the trees. And had the party not gone into the trees, those scouts would have been waiting, and they would have jumped them from behind, basically. They would have left some reserves, met them with some opening stages troops on the road instead, skirmished with them on the road, but when the main engagement was on, basically hit them with their hidden scouts that were waiting in the forests, and come up behind them. But so where the players think that actually maybe went wrong for them, it's funny because with war, you can't tell how it would have been the other way had it happened, and it could well have been a lot worse, even though you think what happened wasn't necessarily a success. Maybe it was better than what would have happened, yeah? Okay, so they engaged them. There was a few, just a few heavy infantry backing the scouts up in the north side. They really wanted to guard that north side and crush them there. And they did. They crushed the Dalish in the north part. South, not so bad, but overall, well, there it is. Corbyn's forces won the opening moves. And won by a very close call, I might add. Won by 1 point in it. That was absolutely crazy. So there was that. Now, at this point, Alora has her elves, her Dalish, being completely surprised in those woods, and they've done a runner. First sign of trouble, and they've bolted. They've got what they wanted. They got the contract, basically, to cross across the lands. They've done their job. They're the stage 1 skirmishers. They've engaged. They've lost. Now they're going to get the hell out and try and head for the Dales while they can. There was a lot of this political mishmashing as well. The players having to convince other commanders to allow the Dalish to come along, and try to convince them to actually sign papers to allow them free roam through the land, or else she won't even agree to talks in the first place, and that kind of thing. And so there's some great moments of negotiation and RP elements within that as well. But anyway, back to the battle. Back to the battle! So we leave the main force sitting on the road, basically. And the weather's quite hot at this point, so nothing really to talk about, except maybe, the heat of marching. But the troops did sit down and camp overnight on the roads as well. But that didn't necessarily help them a great deal, because it allowed Corbyn to spot them and prepare a lot more as well. But anyway, so they were waiting on the road, trying to draw Corbyn out. Now, the thing was, with Edgehall, it's too small and too broken, and they can't fit all of their forces into Edgehall. So half of the forces are actually having to camp outside, and the other half obviously inside. And the wall, the western wall or whatever, which they couldn't see on approach, the scouts didn't You know, they saw it, but they couldn't report back in time, you know, before being, obviously they were running away. So some runner had to get back with the information that the wall is down as well. It's collapsed. We don't know how long ago it collapsed, but there's, you know, all the like the boulders and terrain and stuff. That's pretty much all been like cleared away or whatever, so it's not hazardous. But you know, it's a keep with one wall down waiting for you. I mean, it's almost too easy, that. But hey, you know, it's almost too obvious as well. It was going to be the point that was going to have to be reinforced, even because it was the obvious weakness. So anyway, the main forces are waiting on the road. Will Corbyn bite? Will he sally forth? And, well, even though half his troops are already sprawled out on the ground outside. No. Opposed test, and Corbyn didn't fall for it. He's a very experienced commander, this one, and they stayed in place. The player characters then, Amelia, the general commander, had to decide, what are we going to do? Are we going to stay put and see what happens? Will the time advantage go into Corbyn's favour if we wait? Or are we just going to charge the hell in? And they decided, well, waiting, Corbyn hasn't bit, the plan didn't work, and waiting's probably going to favour him more than it would us. So we're going to charge in and, you know, use up the momentum of the moment. So they went for it. Main engagement started. Full force went at the keep, and it got really bloody then, as if the scout battle wasn't bloody enough, and it was really bad. I mean, so many scouts on both sides there just getting cut the hell down. and then just running away again on both sides. So, but yeah, the main engagement starts. They charge the keep, and there's like arrows flying down and bolts, and all the characters are in that charge. Nearly all of them except Yellow Eye, and it's crazy. You know, the heavy infantry clash with heavy infantry, and that, you know, they spot the gap and go for it, and the Amelia's forces get within 5 of winning, and we go to a flashpoint right there at the gap, the hole in the wall. They've stormed it, and basically the Orlesians are sending out heavy infantry to try to delay the forces from getting in, so that they can buy time for their chevaliers to turn up. The chevaliers have ridden out of the main front gate and ridden round the keep, and they're going to charge straight in through the hole and hammer the heavy infantry in the rear, while they are fighting in the front as well at the, you know, the hole. And so, and he's also trying to call his reinforcements of heavy infantry down, and they're all like running down the steps and through the keep, trying to get there in time and reinforce the area. But, you know, the Chevalier charge, that's setting up stage 3 to be coming, yes? So it'd be one followed by the other. It'd be the heavy infantry arrive, block it down, push them back out, and then the cavalry come in from the rear and smash them. This could be the death of everybody, basically. So they had to then fight 2 Chevalier knights at once, or Legion knights, basically, at once. And that was, well, I thought there might be a bit of a struggle. But this new Sigurd character, quite crazy. I mean, he's able to control people with force and keep them away. Beautiful kiting action through that, you know, through that force mage thing that he's got going on, and pulling them together and then smashing them apart, and, you know, bending their armor, inverting it in on them, and you can hear their bones cracking, and it was nasty, man. They killed enough together as a party, and with their troops supporting them beside them, you know. Really bloodthirsty main engagement. and they got through it, made their way in before the heavy troops could reinforce the hull. Amelia wins the main engagement. It's 1-1. Because she won the main engagement, she chooses leadership for Phase 3. Module doesn't have Phase 3 down as being usable for certain reasons and events that will become understandable. I determined, well, I think it would be more flavourful and characterful at this point if we let Phase 3 actually play out, because it's 1-1. Let's actually see who can win this battle. And then it all came down to it. You know, the Chevaliers charge in, smash the forces eventually, you know, come on through and smash the heavy infantry. Meanwhile, the charge has been ordered for, you know, their own side's cavalry to smash into the Chevalier cavalry from the rear. So, I mean, all that's like going on as well. And the fighting is crazy and desperate again in Stage 3. But they were just pinching ahead some more. And then it got right down to the final roll. And there wasn't going to be a crisis flashpoint here either in Stage 3. And on the final roll, Amelia rolls. Needs to reach 15. Makes it 14. Jeez. 14. And then it's their go. And they need 3 or more on the dragon die to win. And hit 15. And they roll. And they get exactly a 3. So basically they won it. They won Phase 3. Corbyn won Phase 3 by 1 point again, just like they won Phase 1 by 1 point. Phase 2 was a lot more convincing. So, Amelia's forces defeated. We thought this group was indestructible. Nuh-uh, they aren't. Well, they didn't die. So they may well be. Well, Pete's not, but... Hey, Pete! Anyway, right? Now, the thing here, see, they were captured, but, you know, Corbyn was impressed with them, and they were brought before him. He said, yes, you know, a lot of your forces have been broken, and that sort of thing, but you fought really well. And I have to admire that, he said. So, I'll treat you well. And they said, well, look, you've still got to get out of the castle because, you know, you don't belong here. This isn't your place. And he said, well, you know, I'm hanging around to get paid. I'm just doing my job. Maybe you can, you know, I can't leave until Gelderland basically is, you know, appointed rightful owner now of Edgehall. So maybe you can negotiate your own freedom and negotiate for him to, you know, get in. And, you know, the player characters were having to face up to the fact that they might well need to do this, having actually now being captured by the Orlesians as they are. And of course, you know, realistic war, it's not like, oh, one side's completely dead. The, you know, so-called casualties aren't all dead either. You know, a lot of them are just scattered, broken formations. They've, you know, they've retreated. They've run off in panic, and maybe only about a third of those missing are actually dead or dying on the field. That's usually how it was. You know, soldiers would flee. So, with all of that having happened, they're like trying to chat with each other, negotiate what to do. And then the unthinkable happens. A rider turns up on a stray, crazed horse. Amelia calms the horse. And, oh, talking of calming animals, I forgot an important point. Oh my gosh. Right? When they were with Lanya, who is the kind of butch woman, ban person, When they were with her and they went out lion hunting, which Tanador didn't really want to do, and he went off on his own and started tracking separately, and didn't want to help them track at all. Well, Sigurd got jumped on by a great lion, the very lions that they were hunting, and Tanador jumps on him. Remember, he's got the ranger specialization thing. He's allowed a pet, but he had to pass some tests, some animal handling and communication-y sort of things to, and he had to nail them really high and do well to basically calm this thing and, you know, leash it and make it come with him and try and turn it into a pet. And that's what he started doing, and he's the one person in this world with that specialization. He's got another big cat again. Unbelievable. I knew when we saw great lions there as an option for to be hunted there on the grounds that Tanador would probably go for one. But I thought also that he might ruin the negotiations by refusing to hunt them, and then that might sort of offend Lanya, but it never quite worked out that way. He agreed to go along, but purposely mucked up his tracking, so they couldn't find one very well. So, there you go. But, you know, old Yellow Eye, he helped out and did a bit of tracking and found some anyway. And the idea was hunt them to bring their numbers down to make the land safer to live in. Yeah. Right, okay. So, the unthinkable happened. Horse turns up, rider is all lesion, they get him off. He's tainted. He says that Darkspawn have erupted from the deep roads. And it's like, Zamagad, what? He says, over 2,000 of them coming this way. Maybe less than a day's march. OMFG. And then he dies, of course, and gets put out of his misery. They are in a situation, they're all staring at each other, it's dun dun dun, and it's cliffhanger, and it's end of session right there, basically, which is the recommended place to end it, and it's, that's great. The people you've just been fighting, they're going to have to determine, what are we going to do now? We're probably going to have to work together, it seems, you know, and there's been a little bit of conversation with that, with Corbin saying, well, you know, we have a common goal at the moment, we need to sort this out. Problem is that Gal Lendon, he doesn't buy it. He doesn't think that there are any Darkspawn coming at all. He thinks that it is all just a ruse to kick him out of power, and we'll have to see how that goes down then, won't we? That his manner in that way. Now, this is just a little update as well for all of the troops and for you, to let you know basically where things stand after the battle. I used the calculations. Kale has fallen, he died in battle, and pretty much most of his men routed at that. So that was like nearing on a 400-man rout. That was disastrous. Both sides have severely injured each other in the opening moves, and therefore all of their stage 1 specialists on both sides are gone. There you go. They don't have enough to constitute having specialists in stage 1. And when I say gone, not necessarily dead, scattered, broken, that kind of thing. Injured, yeah. Well over 2,000, with possibly another 500 spotted on top, coming to join the main force of Darkspawn. The hot weather, which, you know, doesn't favour marching, has cooled, so it now does favour marching, which is quite handy for the Darkspawn now turning up. Rolled on the random chart. It's the way it went on the weather chart that I've been using. It's just the way it went. That favours the Darkspawn. They've got a large Hurlock general there with an iron left hand, like a hook thing. And he's got alpha bodyguards spotted. They've spotted ogres as a unit coming. Jesus. And here's the thing. Out of a force of 2,050, for one reason or another, from fleeing, running, leaving the field, casualties, all the other things, from 2,050, Amelia has, ready for this, 883 troops left. That's a fairly large loss. It sounds harsh, it sounds bad, but it's actually not all that unusual or unexpected, if you think about it. Remember, these are the dregs. A lot of them are just like farmers, peasants, militia. They're not trained soldiers. They don't have that experience, the majority of them. They weren't wanted for the Blight force, for Kaelin. They weren't recruited for that. They were just left to kind of guard the lands in case something like this came up. They're the dad's army, so to speak. They're the older ones, the younger ones, and whoever ones. In fact, some of them were the older ones, but that's mainly like Path had the veteran ones. But yeah, there's some quite sort of lower troops as well, some lower militia and men-at-arms and things. None of them were really elite like Corbyn's. And that's the problem, because, you know, every one of Corbyn's men is a soldier for hire. That's their job, is a soldier. So, you know, that's kind of like Spartan thing again, where like every one of them is actually a brilliant soldier. So, here's a statistic for you, right? Corbyn has 1,042 left. So, his losses are really small, mega minimal, and it looks chaotic. Again, though, you have to understand, the forces that Amelia was controlling were a complete ragtag band. It's amazing that they got through as close as they did and have as many left as they do. It's just the sheer volume of troops they managed to bring to the field that makes the percentages, how they work it out, like the test and then percentages, and then 35% lost, plus every degree failed by, plus each stage failed of battle, plus if the enemy has stage 3 specialists and things like that, yeah? All those things like go against and make you lose each factor another 5% more of your troops. So obviously the bigger army you have, the more you've got to lose. So I mean that wasn't nice.